I recently lived through my worst suburban nightmare. The HOA president stormed into my backyard and decided to host a neighborhood wellness class in my personal pool. Her excuse? She claimed my property was for community health. The irony? The only thing shared that day was my dye trap turning everyone green. But let me rewind. Ever wonder how a calm suburban morning turns into a neon green battleground you never signed up for? I'll show you the exact instant my peaceful oasis exploded into glowing pool water and pure neighborhood fury. There I was, standing poolside, like any normal homeowner, skimmer in one hand, hot coffee in the other, watching sunlight ripple across the water like it was posing for a commercial. Birds argued from the maples Sarah and I planted back when we still believed in friendly neighbors. Then the side gate slammed open like a cell block door. Karen Miller entered with the flair of a soap opera villain. Red visor angled like a crown. White polo stretched tighter than her grip on this neighborhood's soul. Miller, don't forget it, she made sure no one did. Behind her trailed 6 women in identical swim caps, luxury workout clothes that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. Community wellness initiative, she declared with the arrogance of a toll collector on the only road to heaven. Private property becomes communal if it serves neighborhood health. Her grin could sour fresh milk and probably had. Excuse me? I said, coffee frozen halfway up. This is my private pool, not your fitness retreat. She waved me off like I was a mosquito buzzing near her perfectly polished suburban head. Don't be so dramatic, Robert. Before I could even process that boldness, a tall blonde with linebacker shoulders handed Karen a crisp 20, then launched into a cannonball that blasted chlorinated water all over my deck like a declaration of war. That was the last straw. My thumb slid over the hidden control panel under the decorative stone trim. A little surprise I built after hearing rumors about Karen's schemes. The red button Sarah had neatly labeled emergency only waited like a coiled spring. I'd already dusted the gate latch and rail with UV powder. Anything Karen touched, from her clipboard to the cash, would glow later under the right light. I pressed the button with the satisfaction of someone pulling justice's ripcord. With my free hand, I dialed 911 on speaker so dispatch could hear the whole circus live. 911, what's your emergency? A calm voice answered. Trespassers are running aquatic aerobics in my private pool. They're paying cash, led by our HOA president, I said. Also, the water is about to get visually persuasive. Are they armed? The dispatcher asked. Yes, I replied, with entitlement and a clipboard. Silence. Then, sir, remain on the line. Do not engage. Units are on their way. Copy. I'll keep it clean and glowing. Please don't activate. The colors, sir. Too late. A fine mist lifted from hidden jets, innocent as morning dew for 3 heartbeats. Then chemistry unleashed its fury, science weaponized as payback. The gate stayed locked, though not sealed. Manual release sat in my palm if anyone panicked or needed out. The tracer dye clung to sunscreen and chlorine, turning the pool into blinding neon lime that shimmered like alien blood under blazing sun. Screams erupted like alarms inside a fireworks plant. What did you do to us? The blonde shrieked, climbing the ladder with hands glowing radioactive green until the lotion rinsed off. Karen whipped toward me, eyes wide with the rage of a Paula ruler discovering mutiny. You ruined everything, she shouted, her voice cracking like someone who'd never heard no in her privileged life. She lunged across the slick tile and shoved me toward the pool with both arms. My coffee cup spun in a flawless arc. My heel snagged the coping. Gravity claimed me, plunging me into the glowing storm I had created. Water swallowed sound. For one chilling instant, I drifted in fluorescent silence. Eyes burning, lungs clawing for oxygen that tasted like victory laced with chlorine. I broke the surface into full-blown chaos. Doug lumbered in like every nightmare mall cop. Beard storing. Last week's crumbs. HOA patch hanging crooked on his growing belly. He slapped my phone from my hand. It skittered across the concrete, screen fracturing near Karen's prized cash box. Sirens howled closer. Maybe Joey had called too, but dispatch already had us live. I dragged myself up, alien green dripping off me like molten paint. My pulse hammered like a war drum. Neighbors appeared, phones raised, streaming Karen's downfall. Her anger crumbled as she realized the audience. Dozens recording her caught red-handed clutching cash while neon evidence splashed her designer shoes. Worth more than a family's groceries. Police lights flashed past the maples, painting the fence in red and blue, the warning colors of freedom. I grabbed my cracked phone, still somehow recording, straightened my drenched shirt, and locked eyes with her across water that throbbed like a radioactive heartbeat. Class dismissed, Professor Miller. Sirens cut. Doors slammed. Boots crunched. Gravel with the precision of justice arriving exactly on time. Deputy Martinez, I called, recognizing the same officer who called the civil last month. I raised my still streaming phone. You're live with dispatch. Private property. Paid classes. No consent. Karen lifted her chin, neon droplets flying. This man assaulted us with chemicals. He trapped us. Martinez studied the posted no trespassing signs, the manual override in my hand, then the glowing box of cash. Ma'am. Did you pay to swim here? They paid me, she blurted, then realized she'd walked straight off a cliff with no bridge. Abernathy arrived, exasperated as always, like a law book given human form. Duty, he muttered. Our president has just admitted running a commercial business on private property. I'll take receipts or her resignation, either order works. Karen stabbed a finger toward me. He framed me. Ma'am. Martinez said, angling the recorder her way, nobody forces you to break into private property with a cash box in hand. My next words would decide it all, whether I walked out as hero, villain, or just a cautionary tale about what happens when you corner a homeowner who has nothing left but the family he swore to protect. The pool still pulsed neon, glowing with every promise I'd made and every line I'd crossed to keep them. The reckoning had begun. 6 months earlier, Sarah and I cruised down Maple Lane, windows rolled down, hearts brimming with hope. Sunlight spilled through copper gold leaves, painting the street like someone who still believed in happy endings had brushed it by hand. A for sale sign leaned beside a white-fenced house, a pool so blue it looked like it had stolen color from the sky itself. We parked, locked eyes with that quiet couple's telepathy, and knew instantly we'd found it. Day one felt like stepping inside a postcard. Kids pedaled bikes in tight formation down the center of the street. A yellow ice cream truck jingled by, blasting nostalgia. Neighbors waved from porch swings like they'd rehearsed for our arrival. We signed the papers with trembling hands, hauled boxes until our backs ached, then christened the empty pool by shouting our names just to hear the echoes bounce off water. That night, sprawled on a mattress in the living room, Sarah drew lazy circles on my chest and whispered the words that still make my heart stutter. We made it. Week 1 stayed perfect in that dangerous way that tricks you into dropping your guard. Every night ended with a slow swim beneath sherbet skies. I counted blessings like a miser hoarding coins. 1 safe yard, 1 smiling wife, 1 nursery already painted pale blue. Clouds stenciled by Sarah's steady hand. Then came the first yellow slip, fluttering onto our welcome mat like a warning leaf. Paint shade not on approved list, it declared in block letters. I laughed, certain it was a clerical mistake. 2 days later came another. Trash visible after pickup window, then another. Grass exceeds 2-inch regulation limit. Each one signed in the same tidy script. HOA President Karen Miller, I sighed. Rolled up my sleeves and obeyed. Repainted trim with overpriced paint from the approved palette. Dragged bins behind the house where they sat like shameful secrets. I trimmed the lawn down to military precision. Mower buzzing our grass into suburban submission. Sarah watched through the kitchen window, her brow furrowed in ways that made my chest ache. Is this normal? She asked at breakfast, holding the latest yellow slip like courtroom evidence she didn't want to win. Rules keep neighborhoods tidy, I said, though the words clinked in my mouth like pennies. Karen showed up in person, bearing a plate of cookies that could have doubled as bricks. Polo shirt crisp, beige visor tilted, clipboard clutched like a newborn precious and dangerous. Welcome to Maple Lane, she chirped with weaponized cheer. Her eyes flicked over our porch light, hedge height, and wind chimes, storing every detail in some violation database. Sarah thanked her and attempted a polite bite of cookie, nearly chipping a molar. I noticed the clipboard already held pre-printed violation, slips with our address like traffic tickets waiting for cars that hadn't even broken the law. That night, our phones buzzed with screenshots from the HOA app. Karen's latest post, community courage, sharing resources for wellness. The comments were a stew of pearl clutching and staged empathy. Love this, typed someone who hadn't waved once. Another neighbor asked if pool-positive households could get dues discounts for hosting. Karen replied with a wink emoji and a link to a volunteer form ending in a payment box. Joey texted me a meme of a toll booth with her visor pasted on top. Welcome to Karen Vania. Exact change only. I typed 3 responses, deleted them all. Sarah took my phone. We don't fight on their app, she said, calm but lethal. We fight with evidence. Karen tapped her clipboard. One more thing, we're piloting a wellness equity levy. Homeowners with pools chip in so neighbors without can access, for community health. Sarah blinked. Fees for existing near our water? Karen's smile stretched too wide. Access builds togetherness. Besides, with your condition? Her eyes slid to Sarah's stomach. You might not want the liability of a pool anyway. Safer to share the risk. Sarah placed the uneaten cookie down. We'll share when we choose. That's how sharing works. Karen's pen hovered, disappointed the signature didn't appear on its own. That night I lay awake, tracing hairline cracks in the ceiling. Cracks that suddenly looked like fractures spreading across the perfect dream we thought we'd bought. Slips kept coming like clockwork. Garden hose visible, fence paint unapproved, pool toys not stored. I fixed them all like a dutiful soldier, but each repair felt less like maintenance and more like surrender to an occupying force. A month in, I woke before dawn to the sharp splash of water. Strangers in bright swim caps cut perfect laps through my pool while Karen presided from a folding chair, cash box glinting beside her like a troll demanding tolls. I stormed outside, voice steady but hard. Out, now. Karen patted the empty chair beside her. Community fitness program. Robert, read your covenants. I called the sheriff. Deputy Martinez showed up 20 minutes later, scribbled notes with the excitement of an insurance adjuster, and delivered the verdict that changed everything. Civil matter, sir. Work it out with your board. He left me stranded in my own driveway, forced to watch strangers splash through water I paid to heat, while Karen pocketed cash for classes I never agreed to dot an hour later. A man in a reflective vest wandered up. City inspection, he declared, flashing something that could pass for a badge only if you squinted and had never seen the real thing. Immediate stop use on your pool. Unsafe dimensions? Unsafe dimensions? I asked. Height variance, he said, pointing boldly at The water. I called the city clerk on speaker. 3 rings. Then, we don't do surprise pool inspections. Also, height variance isn't real. I angled the phone so Vest could hear. He tugged his cap, muttered miscommunication, and scuttled off the walk like a crab retreating. As he passed the mailbox, a yellow slip fluttered from his clipboard, Karen's letterhead stamped across the top. I snapped a photo, pinched the paper between 2 fingers, and sealed it in a bag like crime scene evidence. Because that's exactly what it was. That night, Sarah asked the question that still echoes in quiet moments. What kind of neighborhood did we move into? I opened the garage, dragged out PVC pipe and electrical wire, and began crafting something. Karen Miller would never anticipate. If she wanted war fought with rules and paperwork, she'd chosen the wrong rival. Justice was coming to Maple Lane, and it would blaze bright enough to see from orbit. After the deputy's shrug and dismissal, I woke with teeth grinding so hard I swore my molars might crack. My jaw throbbed like I'd chewed cement all night. If the law refused to guard us, then hardware would have to. I started small, surgical. Thumb-sized cameras tucked among the azaleas where Karen's patrols would never notice. Window sensors linked to my phone, pinging me whenever something larger than a cat crossed the line. Smart locks on every gate and door, keyed only to my fingerprint. Then I built the masterpiece. A 12-ton sliding gate forged from steel thick enough to stop a charging rhino. It closed with a deep, resonant clank that sounded like a bank vault locking shut. Every project stole hours of sleep, but each bolt and wire layered more armor around my sanity. At 1:13 a.m., the new camera pinged. Gate tamper. I stepped onto the dark deck with a flashlight, summoning my most disappointed dad voice. On screen, Doug's silhouette hunched at the latch, toothpick dangling, cycling through keys like a kid feeding coins to a stubborn vending machine. He flicked a cigarette. Into my garden, the sprinkler system, petty, beautiful thing, activated right then, drenching him head to toe. He yelped, ripped off a tag he'd zip-tied there. Safety inspection failed and sloshed away dripping. I lifted the soggy tag with tongs and filed it under Bay. Exhibit A. Safety theater until Karen weaponized social media against me. She posted every new upgrade on the HOA app with snide captions. Robert's Fort Knox. When paranoia meets power tools. The likes rolled in like storm clouds. Neighbors who once waved now crossed the street, as if my security systems were contagious. Sarah tried to keep it light. At least they admire your craftsmanship, she said. But her smile faded each time we sat on the porch and realized nobody waved anymore. The whole street acted like we were radioactive, a family that might explode without warning. Joey next door was the only bright spot, leaning over our shared fence with cold sodas and worse jokes. Man, if you add a moat, I'll personally bring the alligators, he said. Still, even he double-checked his gate lock before heading inside. Paranoia spread faster than gossip. The real escalation came when Doug appeared at my new gate, waiting. Like a storm parked on the horizon, too close to ignore, too big to outrun. Arms folded, HOA security patch half torn. Eyes gleaming with the thrill of being obeyed. Karen wants the sprinkler schematics, he said, voice low, almost friendly like a loan shark explaining terms. I stayed behind the latch. Tell her. To read the permit file, he tapped the steel post. You're 2 inches over height code. We can make that disappear or we can make you tear it all down. The threat tasted of copper. My fists clenched, blood thundered in my ears. For a heartbeat, I saw myself dragging him across the lawn, heard knuckles meeting jaw. Then memory. He handed me a Ziploc with a chain of custody form already filled out in my name. Document everything, time, date, every hand that touches it. Paper beats panic. He tapped the cameras. Get redundancy. Triple backups. One drive off-site. His hand brushed the steel gate. Boundaries matter. Records win. Then he turned back to his petunias as if we'd been talking about fertilizer, not battles. 15 minutes later, Karen floated up the walkway like a realtor stalking her own listings. No clipboard this time, just a manila envelope. Robert. She purred. Let's be neighbors again. She slid the envelope toward me. Inside, fee waiver forms, a pre-signed community access code, and a gift card to a spa Sarah liked. You donate 2 afternoons a week for wellness hours, she cooed. I make those little height violations disappear. Everybody wins. Everybody? I asked. She leaned closer, perfume sweet and sharp as venom. It'd be a shame if an unsafe gate complicated your insurance, especially with a baby coming. Liability is such an ugly word. I lifted my phone. The camera light blinked red. Ugly? Words look beautiful on video. Her smile cracked. You're making enemies you can't afford. Good, I said. Volume discount. That night, a neat line of thumbtacks glittered across our driveway like a grin with too many teeth. A sympathy card waited on the porch. We all want what's best for the community. No signature. I swept the tacks into a jar, dropped the card. In after them and labeled the lid. Exhibit B Friendship. Joey proposed mailing it back stuffed with confetti. Abernathy countered. Keep the chain of custody intact. We compromised, relabeling the jar Confetti Felony Edition. Inside, Sarah watched from the kitchen window, one hand resting on the faint curve of new life beneath her sweater. Are we safe? She whispered. Not yet, I admitted. But we will be. That evening, the dining table transformed into a war room. Laptop glowing, schematics spread wide, coffee rings circling each stage of frustration. Joey slid in from next door with a six-pack and a crooked grin. Abernathy followed later, slower, carrying a notebook thick with legal citations. We mapped out options: lawsuit, injunction, press coverage. Every road led to months of delay and Karen smirking poolside. Stinger, Joey said finally. Catch. The queen ant with crumbs on her face. Sarah frowned at the metaphor but nodded anyway. Crash through Afghanistan, a village market, one bad call turning respect into ruin. I'd promised Sarah I'd never let rage steer me again. I stepped back. Doug's grin widened. He thought I'd surrendered. Across the yard, old Mr. Abernathy watered his petunias. He gave the faintest shake of his head, slow, deliberate. Weed. Spoken maybe twice, but in that tiny gesture, I heard his gravel-rough counsel. Win smart, not hard. I exhaled, let the gate slam shut, and walked away. On my way to the door, Abernathy shuffled closer, hose hissing at his feet like a tame serpent. County solicitor, 22 years, he said, answering the question I hadn't asked. My hobby? Slapping bullies with paper. Proof she couldn't twist or bury that became the goal. By midnight, the plan took shape, and we named it. Operation Citrus HEHLIGHTER. In the garage, Joey inflated a kiddie pool while Abernathy measured dye with the precision of a chemist. Food grade, he muttered. Safe enough, but drink it and your stomach will glow with regret. I missed my chance. Sarah smeared sunscreen across the surface of the water, then clicked on the deck's UV light. Whomp. The pool glowed neon lime, like something out of a cartoon crime lab. Joey dipped a finger, touched his cheek. A bright streak lit up like war paint. Sarah grinned. Congratulations, your evidence. We timed how long the glow lasted, logged dilution rates, and wrote on the whiteboard. Rinse window minutes, not seconds. When the neighbor's cat crept into the garage, Joey lunged to scoop it up before we accidentally created a radioactive glow kitty. Test complete. Cat safe. Laughter banked for later. Before we called it ready, we ran the ethics drill. Abernathy pulled up city manuals showing the same tracer dye used for storm drain inspections. Harmless in the small doses we mixed. We set up an eyewash bottle, stacked towels, taped a laminated card to the gate reading, "Manual override here." Sarah insisted on running 2 evacuation rehearsals masks on, gate open, no one left trapped. Muscle memory locked in. I logged a note with a non-emergency line. Possible trespass, brightly colored water, no medical risk. If things went sideways, the record would show we'd chosen bright, not brutal. The evidence needed to be undeniable, so clear even her pet deputy couldn't bury it. Joey knew a guy who knew a guy, someone with access to HOA financial records. Abernathy had heard whispers of a board member quietly questioning Karen's spending. Leads worth pursuing. But the real centerpiece wasn't hacking or sabotage. It was patience. Let Karen's own pride undo her. Every camera I mounted, every sensor wired, every backup drive, it all streamed into a central server. Safe in the cloud. She'll make another move, I told them, pouring fresh coffee. She can't stop herself, and when she does, we'll be ready. Sarah squeezed my hand. Promise we stay smart. No reckless heroics. Only smart moves, I answered. We shut off the lights. Somewhere outside in the dark, a truck engine hummed, then faded. The fuse was lit now, but it was my hand holding the match. Not Karen's. An hour later, Joey rolled his RC car under the fence. A toy monster truck, camera taped to the hood, stickers slapped across the side. This vehicle makes complete stops. We watched its shaky feed as it crept through the alley into Karen's gathering spot near an SUV. She spoke to her loyalists like a queen at court. Maple Lane must cooperate, she declared. And if they don't? Someone asked. Karen smiled, the kind of smile that dentists warn you about. We create compliance. She explained her playbook. Weaponized trash citations, stacked. Fines, endless noise complaints. A paper trail thick enough to scare anyone into silence. The audio was garbled, the video grainy, but the faces were perfect. Joey parked the RC by a storm drain, headlights blinking like a nervous SOS. We pulled it back 10 minutes later and slipped away. Just before Doug finished peering into the shadows like a raccoon with a diploma. By morning, restraint would be tested. Either way, when the sun rose over Maple Lane, justice would be wide awake. Tuesday dawned with the kind of silence that makes nerves crawl. I woke before the alarm, the same itch between my shoulders I used to get before roadside bombs. Trouble was coming. Sarah was already at the kitchen window, coffee mug pressed like a shield, eyes sharp as a sniper's. "What is it?" I asked. She nodded toward the corner. "Mail truck. 3rd time this week. Same driver, same route. But he hasn't dropped anything here since Monday." The driver wore sunglasses under gray skies, clipboard in hand, glancing at our gate too often. Not delivery surveillance. "How long's he been sitting there?" I asked. 20 minutes. Sarah whispered. Finally, the truck pulled away, but not before the driver gave one last long look at our gate. I locked the license plate into memory, though I knew it'd lead nowhere. I tailed him in Sarah's sedan, 3 car lengths back. He skipped 2 real mailboxes, turned onto Oak, and slid behind the rec center. That's when the mask slipped. Driver climbed out, peeled a magnetic USPS logo off the door, and replaced it with a landscaping company sign like swapping identities. I raised my phone. Click, click. He froze, spotted me, then bolted back into the truck, pulling away faster. Then express postage. When I replayed the footage later, I froze on the glove compartment. Instead of stamps, there was a roll of yellow violation slips. That morning, while Sarah was at her doctor's appointment, I made a decision I'd pay Ron a visit. If Karen was pulling strings, the HOA treasurer would know. Money always leaves. Ron answered the door looking wrecked. Shirt wrinkled, hair unwashed, a nervous twitch in his eye that hadn't been there last week. "Rob," he said, voice low, eyes darting past me like he half expected Karen to step out of the shadows. "I can't. We shouldn't be talking. Ron, whatever she's holding over you, it's not worth this. Look at yourself." He let out a bitter laugh. "You think this is about me, Rob? You have no idea what you're up against." He tried shutting the door. I slid my boot into the gap. "Then explain." For a moment, silence. His stare hardened, fear and conscience wrestling behind his eyes. At last, conscience clawed out a win. 10 minutes, he muttered, stepping aside. "Then you leave." We never spoke. His kitchen table was buried under papers, bank statements, contracts, emails. A war room for a man solving an impossible puzzle. "She's been embezzling for years," Ron said, sliding documents toward. "ME, skimming maintenance funds, inflating contractor bills, inventing fake expenses. 14 properties, bought through shell companies after she tanked their value with violations and harassment." I studied the map. "She's not just stealing from the HOA. She's stealing the entire neighborhood." Ron nodded grimly. "Remember the Fosters? They refused to sell. Electrical fire. 2 weeks later, one of her LLCs bought the lot." A cold weight sank in my chest. "There's a bigger player here, a development company. Very well funded." His face darkened. 2 weeks ago, someone broke into my daughter's apartment. Didn't steal a thing. Just wrote on the bathroom mirror, "Your father needs to be more careful." I sat back, head spinning. This wasn't neighborhood politics gone wrong. This was organized crime wrapped in an HOA letterhead. "Ron, we have to stop her." He cut me off, shaking his head. "Rob, I'm already dead. I just haven't stopped breathing yet. The only reason I'm still walking around is because she needs me to keep the books clean a little longer." What if we had proof? Real, undeniable proof. For the first time, hope flickered in Ron's eyes. "What kind of proof?" I leaned forward. "The kind that topples houses of cards. The kind that sends people to federal prison instead of torching homes." Ron reached under the table and pulled out a small digital recorder. "Everything we've talked about is on here," he whispered. "Plus 3 more recordings from the last month. Karen doesn't know this one exists." He placed it in my hand. "If something happens to me, if I have an accident or vanish, make sure this ends up with someone she can't buy. Someone beyond her reach." I pocketed the device. "Nothing's going to happen to you, Ron." His eyes hardened. "Maybe not. But if you plan to fight her, understand the stakes. She isn't a petty dictator with a clipboard. She's a criminal with resources, connections, and nothing left to lose." As I left his house, I could feel eyes on me from every direction. The mail truck parked 3 blocks down, engine cold. A landscaping crew trimming hedges that hadn't been there this morning. Movements too neat, too coordinated. The revelation changed everything. This wasn't about pools or parking violations anymore. This was about survival. Karen wasn't trying to control us, she was trying to erase us. By the time I got home, Sarah was back from her appointment, glowing with good news about new life. But when she saw my face, her smile dimmed. "What happened?" I told her everything, Ron. The embezzlement, the shell companies, the Foster's fire, the development plan. When I finished, she was pale, but her eyes burned with steel. "So, what do? We document everything," I said. "We build a case so solid that even corrupt officials can't bury it." I looked out at the calm street, hiding rot beneath its paint. "Then we burned down her entire operation." Sarah nodded, her hand drifting to her stomach. For the baby, she whispered. For everyone she's hurt and everyone she's planning to. As night fell, I stood at our window. Across the street, the surveillance team fumbled at looking. Inconspicuous. They thought they were watching victims. They were wrong. They were watching the people who were about to bring their whole world crashing down. That afternoon, we'd canvassed the block. Most doors cracked an inch, fear seeping out like air conditioning, but Mrs. Delgado swung wide. Bring me proof, she said, thrusting a yellow legal pad into my hands, and I'll bring a quorum. She wrote 3 names and underlined them twice. People who are done staying silent. That night, Sarah and I sat at our kitchen table, Ron's recorder lying between us like a loaded weapon. The evidence was overwhelming. Hours of Karen's voice laying out embezzlement schemes, property fraud, and threats bold enough to shame a mobster. We had everything needed to bury her. The question wasn't can we win? It was how far are we willing to go? We could just leave, Sarah whispered, her hand resting gently on her barely visible bump. Take this to the FBI. Let them handle it. We disappear while it plays out. Start fresh somewhere safe. I studied her face in the soft lamplight. She was afraid, and she had every reason to be. We weren't up against a nosy HOA president anymore. This was an organized criminal machine, resources, connections, and a proven taste for fire. You want to run? I asked, not accusing, only curious. I want our baby to grow up with both parents alive. Her voice cracked. I want to. Sleep at night without wondering if someone's going to pour gasoline around our home. I reached across the table and took her hand. It trembled faintly, but I felt it. Sarah, if we run now, what about the next family? What happens when Karen picks her next target, her next block to carve up and sell? That's not our fight, isn't it? I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. We had the proof. We had the power. If we walked away and someone else suffered, would their blood be only on her hands or partly on ours too? Sarah's voice hardened with a mother's instinct. Rob, I've watched what this is doing to you. The nights you don't sleep, the way you scan every corner. Every sound makes you reach for a weapon. Every car that slows on our street, you treat like an enemy patrol. This isn't life. This isn't survival. It's breaking you. She was right, and I knew it. The tension had hollowed me out. I was becoming someone unrecognizable, someone who saw threats in every neighbor, dangers in every smile. But then I remembered Ram's daughter waking to find that lipstick warning scrawled across her mirror. I remembered the Fosters running barefoot from flames while Karen's shell company circled their ashes like vultures. I remembered all the families before us who chose to flee, leaving the monster free to feast on the next unlucky ones. There's the right way to fight her, I said at last. And there's the smart way. They don't have to be the same. Sarah raised an eyebrow, questioning. I pushed back my chair, stood, and walked slowly to the living room window dot across the street, a van that hadn't been there this morning, now idled beneath a broken street lamp. Sloppy surveillance, but surveillance all the same. They weren't even pretending anymore, which meant the choice wasn't just run or die. There's a third option, I said, turning back to Sarah. I saw it click instantly, the look in my eyes. The same look I had the day I told her I was enlisting. The quiet resolve that carried us through deployments, through nights of PTSD, through trials that should have shattered us but never did. We finished this. Surgical, clean, no heroics, no reckless risks. We used their own system to crush them. Sarah stayed silent, her face unreadable. When she finally spoke, her tone was steady, though edged with unease. What exactly are you suggesting? I sat down again and pulled out a legal pad. Karen has 3 pressure points. Her financial scams rely on Ron. Her property scams depend on bribed local officials. And her whole empire works only as long as the feds stay blind. We exploit. All three. I sketched a rough timeline. First, Ron gets immunity in exchange for complete cooperation. Every dollar, every threat, every fraud all documented. Then we don't touch local cops. Too dirty. We go straight to the FBI's corruption unit. And if she figures it out? Sarah asked. She won't, I said flatly. Because we won't give her the time. This recorder is strong evidence, but not enough. We need her caught on tape live with federal agents watching. Sarah leaned closer, curiosity breaking through her fear. How? We make her believe she's already won. We pretend to sell, but we demand she meets us in person to finalize the deal. She'll start bragging about the development, the shell companies, maybe even the Foster's fire, and we'll be wearing wires. That's incredibly dangerous. Less dangerous than running and waiting for her to find us. Less dangerous than letting her move on to the next family. I reached for her hand again. Sarah, we can end this. Not just for us, I said softly, for everyone. Sarah stayed silent, weighing the choice like a scale only she could see. Minutes passed before she finally answered. If we move forward, really move forward, I need conditions. Federal protection while this plays out. Relocation support if it comes to that. And if I sense for even a second that you're in real danger, we pull the plug and disappear. No stubbornness. No martyr complex. Agreed? And when the baby comes, she added firmly, this ends. No more crusades. No more battles against broken systems. Just a quiet life, a safe home, a family. Absolutely, I told her. Her eyes searched mine, testing for lies, for false bravado. Whatever she found seemed to be enough because she gave the smallest nod. Then we do this carefully. Every detail documented, every protocol followed. No unnecessary risks. The weight pressing on my chest eased heavier than I'd realized until it lifted. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was justice. And it was about ensuring Karen's grip ended with us, not passed down into our child's world. One more thing, Sarah said, resting a hand on her belly. If it falls apart, if the plan fails, don't carry that guilt. Don't take it all on yourself. Promise me. Her words stopped me cold. She knew me too well, how I shouldered every loss, even the ones beyond my reach. Promise me, Rob, we do this together, as equals. Whatever happens, we face it side by side. I leaned across the table and kissed her forehead. Partners. Partners, she echoed. She opened a voice memo on her phone. The faint, whooshing rhythm from today's appointment filled the room. Not music, not words, just the proof of a tiny heartbeat, steady as a drummer practicing rudiments. We stayed there, holding each other, letting that fragile rhythm sound. Like a vow. No heroics, Sarah whispered. Just good record keeping, I replied, tapping the device on the table. Outside, the surveillance van's engine rumbled to life before pulling away, probably heading off to report that the couple was safely contained, completely unaware of the storm brewing behind closed doors. They couldn't have been more wrong. We spent the next hour sketching strategies, marking risks, and building contingency after contingency. By the time we finally headed for bed, we held the outline of a plan that might save everything or destroy us completely. As I reached to turn out the light, Sarah's hand found mine in the dark. No regrets? She asked. No regrets, I answered, but lying awake later, listening to her slow, steady breaths, the truth pressed in. We were about to cross a threshold we could never step back from. Once we made ourselves open adversaries, not just obstacles, there would be no return to the quiet life we'd imagined. A faint kick against Sarah's stomach, tiny, fluttering, insistent push through the fabric and into my palm. A reminder of everything we were risking and everything we were protecting. Tomorrow, the fight would begin in earnest. Tomorrow, we would either dismantle Karen's empire or burn our own lives to ash trying. One way or another, it ended here. At 2:11 a.m. The phone rang. Blocked number. I answered. A woman's voice, soft and mocking, sang through the receiver. Congratulations on the baby. Sleep matters. Try it with both eyes closed. Click. No threats. Just venom disguised as sweetness. By the time Sarah stirred, I'd already logged the call and forwarded the recording to Abernathy. She didn't cry, didn't flinch. She simply guided my hand back to her stomach and whispered, "This is why." Another kick. Like agreement. By dawn, every piece of evidence had been mirrored to 3 drives, 1 dispatched to the state attorney general, 1 sealed for the FBI's corruption intake office, 1 locked in Abernathy's safe. The wire would come later, but the documents could strike first. If arrests happened before the recordings, at least the trail would climb higher, dragging every accomplice into daylight. The following evening, the rec center swarmed like a nest torn open. Folding chairs scraped against the linoleum in crooked rows. Neighbors who had hidden behind curtains for months now filled the hall. Their whispers traded for the courage to speak aloud. The fluorescent bulbs hummed with that sickly institutional buzz, making the whole place feel like the waiting room of an apocalypse. Sweat gleamed on foreheads despite the October chill bleeding through thin walls. I stood at the podium, laptop open, heart hammering like I was delivering closing arguments in the trial of the century. Beside me, Abernathy loomed part guardian, part executioner, his hands resting on the battered briefcase that held enough legal firepower to bring down an empire. Sarah sat in the front row, one hand shielding the gentle rise of her belly, the other gripping her phone as she live-streamed. For neighbors too frightened to attend. And in the back, Joey leaned against the wall with his own camera running, grinning like a man certain his team was about to win. Ron paced by the exit, white-knuckled around a flash drive like it contained nuclear launch codes. In a way, it did, the codes to blow Karen's entire empire sky-dash high. At 7:01 p.m. sharp, acting chair Mrs. Delgado struck the gavel. The crack echoed through the hall like a gunshot. Every conversation snapped shut. Delgado was a small woman with steel-gray hair, but she carried herself with the kind of authority only years of corralling middle schoolers can forge. She had stared down bullies before. She would do it again tonight. First agenda item. She announced, her voice steady, unwavering. Allegations and charges against former President Karen Miller and Security Officer Doug King. The words rippled through the crowd. Nervous energy crackled like storm air. Some shifted in their seats, still wary of Karen's reach, even with her booked hours earlier. Others leaned forward, eyes blazing, starved for the reckoning they had been denied for too long. I rose, plugged my laptop into the ancient projector, and waited as the bulb hummed to life. The room fell silent, the collective breath of neighbors suspended. Then the screen ignited in a burst of harsh green light that painted every face like an otherworldly mask. The first image filled the wall. Karen, mid-lunge at the pool's edge arms, flailing, face twisted with rage and disbelief. Around her, tracer dye curled through the water like radioactive smoke. The crowd gasped as one. Some mouths fell open in shock. Others broke into stifled, nervous laughter, the sound of justice finally clearing its throat after years of silence. "This footage," I said, my voice steadier than my heartbeat, "was recorded on my private property during an unauthorized commercial swimming operation conducted without permission, permits, or payment." Click. Next slide. Karen's cash box glowed under police lab lighting, stacks of bills pulsing like they carried their own radioactive charge. The ultraviolet powder lit them up in ghostly blues and purples, every note a burning brand of guilt. These bills, I continued, my tone sharpening with each word, were treated with ultraviolet marking powder, the same used by banks to trace stolen currency. Each note that passed through Mrs. Miller's hands now carries her prints, her trace, and we have video proof tying every bill directly to her possession. I let the silence hang, broken only by the hum of the projector. Then enough, I finished, to convict her in any court of law. The crowd erupted, some in applause, some in shouts of relief, all in the release of a fear they'd carried too long. Murmurs rippled through the crowd like waves slamming into a rocky shore. Karen's former allies squirmed in their seats, whispering behind cupped hands. A few quietly gathered their purses and slipped toward the exits like rats fleeing a sinking ship. Click. The screen shifted. Spreadsheet after spreadsheet filled the wall columns of fraudulent entries, each highlighted in glaring yellow. A roadmap to white-collar crime. The numbers didn't just add up. They told a story. Month after month of stolen funds, siphoned from neighbors who had scraped together dues while their playgrounds rotted and their pool cracked with neglect. I stepped aside. Ron approached the microphone like a condemned man taking the long walk, but with the resolve of someone who had finally decided to stop running. His hand shook as he unfolded his papers, but when he spoke, his voice carried through the hall with unexpected strength. For the past 8 months, he began, his words trembling but clear, I have documented systematic embezzlement of community funds under a false line item labeled Pool Enhancement Initiative. The room exploded. Shouts of outrage ricocheted off the walls. Demands for clarification. Accusations thrown like knives in every direction. Witch hunt. A voice bellowed from the back. I shielded my eyes against the glare of the projector and shot back, Sir, if this were a witch hunt, we'd be looking for brooms, not bank transfers. The line cracked the tension. Nervous laughter rippled through the room. Even Mrs. Delgado's lips twitched before she snapped the gavel down. Bang. 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 Order barely return. Ron swallowed hard and pressed on. Total amount stolen $67,432.18. Every payment traced to a post office box controlled exclusively by Karen Miller. No contractors were hired. No pool enhancements performed. The money vanished straight into her personal accounts while she raised dues to cover the shortfall she created. A woman in the third row, one of Karen's fiercest defenders, sprang to her feet. Her movements were jerky, desperate, like a marionette with cut strings. This is fabricated, she cried, her voice cracking under the weight of betrayal. Robert planted the evidence. He framed an innocent woman who only wanted to serve her community. Gasps, hisses, more murmurs. The hall was a pressure cooker on the edge of blowing. It slid. That's when Abernathy rose, smooth, controlled, a predator catching the scent of blood in the water. He straightened his jacket and turned toward the crowd. His voice rolled out calm and commanding, honed by decades in courtrooms where truth eventually crushed lies like glass underfoot. Ma'am, he said evenly, every piece of evidence presented tonight has been verified by independent forensic accountants, reviewed by the district attorney's office, authenticated through chain of custody protocols that would satisfy any federal court in the nation. Silence, the kind that lands heavy, the kind that leaves no room for denial. He snapped open his briefcase and drew out a thick binder sealed with official stamps like a legal time bomb waiting to explode. Inside, bank records, fingerprint comparisons, video forensics, sworn witness accounts, and financial audits. Every page pointed to one unavoidable truth: systematic theft, fraud, and abuse of authority. The defense collapsed in slow motion like a crumbling dam. Karen's allies turned on each other in hushed arguments. A few near the back slipped out quietly, desperate to avoid going down with a sinking ship already half underwater. Mrs. Delgado scanned the chaos, then raised the gavel with the weary authority of someone who had witnessed too much corruption in one lifetime. The board will now vote on the emergency removal of Karen Miller and Doug King from all HOA positions pending criminal proceedings. All in favor? Hands shot up fast, decisive like flowers bursting open after a storm. I counted 17, 18, 23, 27. Even longtime supporters lifted their arms, abandoning Karen to protect their own reputations. Opposed? Only 3 hands remained: Karen's sister, her next-door neighbor likely in debt to her, and one elderly man who had clearly slept through the presentation and didn't know what he was voting on. Motion passes by overwhelming majority. Effective immediately, Karen Miller and Doug King are removed from all positions of authority within this homeowners association. The gavel struck with the finality of a coffin lid, slamming shut on Karen's reign of suburban terror. But the evening wasn't done yet. 2 deputies, who had waited silently near the exit, stepped forward with solemn expressions edged with the faintest hint of amusement. Deputy Martinez spoke clearly. Additional charges have been filed this afternoon: conspiracy to commit fraud, organized theft, breach of fiduciary duty, and criminal harassment. The final blow came from an unexpected voice. Tina, a single mother from the edge of the neighborhood, rose holding a folder of her own. Her voice quivered with years of buried anger as she described how Karen had singled out families like hers, the ones who couldn't afford to fight back. She made our lives unbearable, Tina said, tears spilling down her cheeks. Late fees for dues we couldn't pay, fines for violations that never existed, harassment that forced my neighbor to sell at a loss just to escape. This wasn't about enforcing rules. This was about control, about cruelty. The room fell into reverent silence. Even the air conditioning seemed to hush in respect. Then applause. Slow at first, one person, then another, until the entire hall rose to its feet, clapping in a thunderous ovation that shook the walls. Mrs. Delgado dabbed her eyes, then struck the gavel one final time. Meeting adjourned. Doug stormed down the aisle, jaw tight, shoulders squared for a fight. This is a setup. You can't. 2 deputies cut him off halfway. Sir, hands where we can see them. He ignored the warning and grabbed 4. The projector cart. Bad move. In one practiced motion, they spun him, cuffs clicking shut. On what grounds? He barked. Let's start with disorderly conduct, Martinez replied smoothly. We'll add the rest as we go. As Doug was escorted out, Joey leaned over and muttered, Finally, a bracelet program this neighborhood can get behind. Number 1 left the hall. Instead, neighbors gathered in clusters, trading apologies, thanks, even potluck invitations. A woman who once ticketed my lawn slipped me a lemon pie. The teenage lifeguard asked if swim lessons would continue legally this. Timed out when the crowd thinned, I glanced back at the projector's frozen frame. The soft green glow still lit faces in shades of remorse and renewal. Maple Lane's darkest night had somehow become its turning point. A community no longer living in fear. The war that began with petty violation slips ended not with fists, but with ballots. Not with revenge, but with accountability. As Sarah took my hand and we stepped toward the exit, it struck me. The sweetest victories aren't when you crush your enemies. They're when you free everyone else from their grip. Late summer dusk settled over Maple Lane, warm and forgiving after months of tension stretched tighter than piano wire. The pool, once a battlefield under harsh lights, now lay glassy and cobalt blue. No fences rattled with angry demands. No sirens split the air. Only sprinklers clicking in distant yards and children laughing without fear. Sarah and I sat at the pool's edge, feet dipping in cool water. Her laugh, rare for so long, spilled out like a rediscovered song. The baby stirred beneath her hand, kicking in celebration of peace. Joey cannonballed off the diving board, splashing wide. No tracer this time? He grinned, treading water. I shook my head. He whooped and paddled lazy laps. He popped up again, slicking hair back. Okay, but if I glow tomorrow, I'm suing for superhero royalties. Mrs. Delgado passed by with a tray of brownies. Call it community spirit, she said. Abernathy, buried in his paper plate, added dryly, royalties are taxable. Joey groaned. Justice has paperwork, huh? Sarah tapped my shoulder. Always. Across the street, porch lights blinked on in welcome. Mrs. Delgado set out folding chairs for a block potluck. Ron showed up carrying a cake, frosted in bright green with the word justice scrawled across it. His kind of joke, the first thing. In days that actually made people laugh. The Johnson twins dragged out a card table to the sidewalk. A sign read, glow sticks for legal fees, $1. Beneath it, they taped a coupon, redeem for 1 cannonball with permission. We bought 10. My phone buzzed with a push alert. Former HOA president takes plea deal, cooperating with estate. Attorney General. The article included a photo of a familiar SUV and a much less flattering prison jumpsuit. Joey let out a low whistle. Neon still her color. Even Abernathy wandered over, muttering, Karen pleaded guilty this afternoon. The machine of justice grinding forward. Our part of the battle finally finished. I walked the fence line one last time. The motion sensors blinked steadily, no longer trip wires but porch lights. The steel gate no longer felt like a fortress, just a boundary. Sarah nudged me with her shoulder. You're still counting threats. Habit, I admitted, watching kids chase fireflies. But even I could see the numbers were finally going down. She leaned into me. Keep the skills. Let go of the fear. The question that haunted every sleepless night returned. What does justice actually look like? Tonight, the answer felt simple. A safe yard, clear water, laughter that didn't break. A child who would grow up knowing fences could keep danger out without locking people in. Joey hauled himself from the pool, dripping. Gate pass for the cookout? I tossed him a keycard. Bring ribs, leave the drama. Sarah squeezed my hand. Promise we keep it like this. No more wars unless someone truly needs saving. I glanced at the maple trees swaying in the evening breeze. I promise. But if trouble ever crosses the fence, we'll deal with it wisely. She nodded. Finishing the thought for me. We sat until the stars scattered across the sky and the pool lights shimmered like ripples of pale green, never sharp enough to accuse, only soft enough to soothe. Neighbors drifted home, folding chairs, scraping gently on the pavement. Good night carried from yard to yard. Justice wasn't the roar of triumph. It was the hush that finally settled in when peace was allowed to take root.